My husband does things for me that he might not always feel like doing, navigating my complex emotional landscape, handling all the most disgusting household jobs and heavy lifting, dealing with spiders or noises in the night, and listening graciously even when he'd rather be getting on with something else. He does all this without complaint, not because he always feels like it, but because he cares about me and our marriage. This is what researchers call communal strength, and it's a key ingredient in thriving marriages. It's the motivation to meet a partner's needs without expecting anything in return, simply because you value the relationship. In this video, we're going to explore a facet of communal strength that's too often overlooked and undervalued: sexual communal strength, the motivation to respond to a partner's sexual needs simply because you care about the relationship. I'm going to explain what it is, how to cultivate it, how it works in real life, and why it deserves to be part of every marriage. Hi, I'm Laura, a relationship therapist and coach. I help couples create relationships that feel alive and fulfilling. If you're new here, welcome. First, a disclaimer. This video isn't for those dealing with trauma, abuse, coercion, or physical pain during sex. Here, we're focusing on sexual generosity in loving marriages with good men. Okay, so let's define clearly what sexual communal strength is. Sexual communal strength is the willingness to meet your partner's sexual needs. It's a loving, voluntary part of a broader, caring, reciprocal marriage, and it's especially relevant for women with a lower sex drive than their husbands. It doesn't involve coercion, pressure, self-erasure, or compliance. It's a self-motivated choice driven by loving intent. One of the reasons this form of generosity is so undervalued is that our culture tends to promote emotion-based needs above all else. For example, we encourage men to be empathetic and emotionally literate, to listen attentively, express devotion, plan dates, and demonstrate loyalty. Fair enough, and in fact, healthy men do this work willingly, and it's something I encourage. But that's not the full picture. There's an assumption that sexual intimacy will flow naturally and spontaneously once an undefined threshold of emotional needs are sufficiently met, to the point that if a marriage ends up sexless, the assumption is usually that the husband must be failing in some way that makes him unworthy of sexual connection. What culture doesn't tell you is that for most women in long-term relationships, desire doesn't work that way. You can have all the emotional connection in the world, a husband who does everything right, and still not feel motivated to engage in any form of sexual intimacy. And whilst that's a completely normal, predictable pattern, it's not always a sign that anything's wrong with you or your relationship. So here, I'm arguing that as much as emotional generosity should be an ongoing project for men, sexual generosity ought also be an ongoing project for women. Put simply, if a man wants to be with a woman and truly care for her well-being, he must engage with her emotional world. Similarly, if a woman wants to be with a man and care for his well-being, she must recognize that sex must be part of a healthy marriage's landscape. This is where sexual communal strength becomes transformative. It gives you a framework for showing up sexually that doesn't depend on spontaneous desire. You're not forcing yourself, you're not performing, and it's not in any way transactional. On the contrary, you're choosing to meet your husband's needs the same way he chooses to meet yours, from a place of love, care, and commitment to the relationship. Research shows sexual communal strength is associated with greater sexual desire, higher relationship satisfaction, and better ability to navigate normal desire discrepancies. Both partners report higher sexual satisfaction and overall relationship quality. Women higher in sexual communal strength pursue sex to enhance intimacy and connection, not to avoid conflict or keep the peace. And that distinction is key. Having sex to avoid a fight, what researchers call unmitigated sexual communion, doesn't work. Both partners end up suffering, reporting lower sexual satisfaction, more distress, anxiety, and depression. Nobody wants that, and that's not what I'm suggesting here. The difference between grudging obligation and genuine self-motivated generosity is critical. When you engage sexually because you want your husband to feel loved, a marriage can be completely transformed. How? Through the power of gratitude. When he feels genuinely valued and desired, he experiences gratitude, which motivates him to care for you even more. You feel his increased devotion, which deepens your motivation to meet his needs. Researchers call this a circle of virtue, an upward spiral of mutual care and relationship satisfaction. So, if sexual communal strength offers all these benefits, why isn't it more commonly practiced? Why do so many women struggle with this concept? The first thing to understand is that most women in long-term relationships don't experience sexual desire the way many men do. They aren't typically walking around feeling horny all the time. This is completely normal. It's called responsive desire, meaning desire that emerges in response to sexual activity, not before it. The problem is that if a woman with responsive desire won't engage sexually until she's in the mood, she may never engage at all. This becomes a significant issue if you're married to a man who needs a sexual connection with you to feel loved. For many women, once they understand their own bodies and recognize that sexual intimacy is as vital to their husbands as emotional intimacy is to them, sexual communal strength becomes a straightforward and empathic solution. For others, of course, it's more complex because sex isn't as straightforward for women as it is for men. Women often struggle with spectatoring, monitoring and judging their bodies during sex instead of being present. If you're worried about how you look or how you're responding, the resulting anxiety can make responsive desire much harder to kick in. The solution here is mindfulness, out of your head, into your body. Focus on physical sensation and connection, not performance. If that feels too challenging, look into sensate focus as a gentler starting point. A small minority of women experience sexual aversion, which is extreme anxiety or disgust at the thought of sex. That's a clinical condition requiring therapeutic intervention, usually CBT or exposure therapy. So if that's you, please do seek support. But for most women, these barriers are psychological rather than physiological, which means they can be addressed, and obviously they are well worth addressing. So, assuming you're able to engage sexually, what does sexual communal strength actually look like day to day? Well, mostly it's about cultivating a yes mindset. This doesn't mean saying yes to every sexual advance, but it does mean approaching your husband's desire with openness. When he initiates, your first thought isn't, oh, do I have to? But rather, can I show up for him right now? Sometimes the answer is genuinely no because you're exhausted, hormonal, or emotionally tapped out, and that's okay. Saying yes when you're not able to engage positively wouldn't serve your marriage anyway. But you deliver that no with kindness. I'm sorry, not tonight, love, but how about tomorrow? More often, though, the answer becomes yes, not because you're forcing yourself, but because you've reframed what yes means, that you're choosing to be receptive, to lean into your husband's bids for connection and allow responsive desire to do its work. And you'll probably find that the more you engage, like any other practice, the easier and less daunting it becomes. In fact, women who show up sexually with communal motivation often end up experiencing pleasure themselves, even when they weren't initially aroused. For many women, even their spontaneous desire begins to make a comeback as they become more sexually minded, and that's a massive win for both partners. Finally, what about the times when you genuinely want to be there for him, but you really don't want to take your clothes off? Well, ladies, I'm sorry to be blunt here, but there's always a place in your repertoire for the humble hand job. And the same philosophy applies here. Mindfulness. Focus on the physical sensations, the energy between you, and the intimate connection you're creating. This simple act can be a profound declaration of love and generosity. Research shows that sexual communal strength includes meeting your partner's sexual needs without expecting direct reciprocation in that moment. And this is a powerful way to do that. There's no concern about how your body looks or pressure for it to respond in a particular way. If your heart's in the right place, it can feel as natural as giving him a shoulder rub, except infinitely more meaningful to him. You're showing him he matters, that his needs aren't trivial, that you see him, value him, and you're willing to extend yourself for him. The reality is that sexual generosity isn't a technique or a strategy. It's the natural response of a loving nurturing woman who sees her husband's devotion, strength, and everyday sacrifices. She feels genuine gratitude for the man he is and the way he shows up for her. And from that place, she recognizes that his desire for sex isn't a petty demand or a trivial want. It's a core emotional need, just as real as her need for emotional closeness, stability, and loyalty, which a loving husband gives freely. In this context, sexual generosity feels like care and reciprocity, not a chore. There's no resentment, no martyrdom, and no sense of pressure. It feels natural, right, and easy because it flows from the same communal strength that sustains the marriage more generally. Doesn't that sound like the marriage we all want? Now, maybe you're wondering, how do I actually develop more sexual communal strength if it doesn't come naturally? Or how can I help my partner develop it? If you want to strengthen your own communal strength, practice is key. The more you show up sexually for your partner from a place of genuine care, the more natural it becomes. Cultivate gratitude by actively noticing all the ways your partner shows up for you. Express appreciation regularly. Focus on approach goals, engaging sexually to enhance intimacy and connection, rather than avoidance goals like preventing conflict. Over time, these practices naturally change how you feel about showing up sexually. If you're hoping your partner will develop more sexual communal strength, express genuine appreciation for what they do, not just sexually, but in all areas of life. Make them feel valued and seen, but also create an environment where they feel grateful for you. Show up emotionally, meet their needs generously, and make sex a pressure-free zone where they can be present rather than feel like they're performing. Sexual communal strength grows in marriages where both partners are extending themselves in multiple ways. This is good old-fashioned reciprocity in action. If this sounds like something you'd like to work on but you don't know where to begin, then you can reach out to me or one of my team using the link in the description and we'll be happy to guide you. And if this message felt important to you, consider subscribing so you don't miss the next conversation. I post new videos every week. If you enjoyed this video, then you might also enjoy this one about trust and intimacy in marriage. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next week. In the meantime, to yourself and to others, tell the truth.